Well, I hope you can kind of hear me over the heater. It's just a little chilly out here. It's sitting right underneath you guys. But I thought I'd maybe make a video that kind of outlined the S10 itself. So if I jump around, I apologize, but I don't mean to. This body is the same body that was on the early videos of the S10 solid axle truck. It's the same body. That truck was also a big block, but it was just a mild big block. It wasn't no super built. It was balanced and forged and all that, but it wasn't no super monster motor. When I built that truck, that's something that just kind of snowballed with the boys, and once I got it done, it was cool and everything, but I wasn't happy with it. I wanted to build a two-wheel drive truck. So we pulled the body off. I sold the chassis as a roller with the transmission in it. It had a 700 R4 with a 208. And sold the engine to another guy. He put it in a dually, spur body dually, I think is what he bought it for. But I kept the body. Well, I picked up in the meantime a 98 round body. Dark, kind of a dark forest green. But it had been wrecked in the front, so it was going to need a whole new front clip. Well, me knowing that the frames will interchange under the trucks, I just cut the bumper mounts off, got a set of the 82 square body bumper mounts, which welded onto this, and I didn't need a cross member, and those chassis are boxed all the way back to the front spring hangers for the rear leaf springs. And if I remember right, I think their engine cross member is a little narrower. So we proceeded to swap this body over onto that chassis. And I don't think I made any videos of when we did that, because at the time the truck was going to be my son's youngest boy's, and I think he kind of felt bad because I gave him the truck. So he said, it's your truck, we'll build it together, but it's your truck. And that's when we big blocked it the first time. And the first time it was big blocked as two-wheel drive. It had a 496 in it. In the beginning, it come out because it was actually needed somewhere else. The rotating assembly is in my wife's El Camino with a set of 188 big square port heads on it now, and we toned the cam down in it. Then I built the 60 over 402, which was a true 402. It come out of I think a 71 pickup, 70-71. But kid told me it was a 396, and come to find out it was originally a 402. We punched it 60 to 413, bumped the compression way up on it, put a big old nasty cam in it, and that's what was in it toward the end. And I ended up selling it not that long ago, before it got cold. I gave it to my boy. I gave him the Turbo 350 that was in it, the TCI Street Fighter, converter and everything. He sat on it for a while, and he said, you know what, just sell it and we'll put it toward this. So that's what we did. But this truck here, when we went to build it, if you remember, a lot of y'all remember in the early videos, I had a 73 454 block that we were going to splay the mains on, make 2-bolt, or 2-bolt to 4-bolt. And my engine guy, machine guy, shop guy told me, he said, what you're going to do, and he told me stories and showed me stuff where he made 1,000 horsepower on a studded 2-bolt balanced motor. And I said, oh really? Now I know in the past my dad had some gnarly engines that were 2-bolt main, you know, balanced rotating assembly, studded bottom ends. And they held up, 700-800 horsepower, but I never thought you'd go that much. But he showed me where he did it in a drag car, and it was an all motor car. One of them he said that he had was a 460 30 over 454 studded balanced 2-bolt block, 16.85 to 1 compression. It was making over 1,000 horsepower, and he would wing it to 7,800 in a 2,900 pound car, and told me he was running 154, 156 mile an hour. So, I tend to believe him, being that the car was sitting there. So we're sitting there and talking, and I actually went up that day and took the block up and all my parts and everything. We started talking again. He wasn't busy that day, and he said, you know what, I got something to work better for you over here if you're interested. And I said, what's that? And he said, I got a couple bow tie blocks. They're brand new. He's had them for years. Guy got him to build 2 motors for a boat and backed out on it. And the blocks are a 1005 1107 is the number, casting number. He had 2 of them. So I ended up selling him my block because he needed it for a mild build. So I sold him my block. He made me a good price on one. I called him back and I said, what would you take for the other one? 2 weeks later I went and bought the other one, and it's sitting in the basement. So I can keep it out of humidity and shit that's out here. But I do have a dehumidifier out here. So then he proceeded to sell me the Callie's crankshaft. He made me a good deal on that. And at the time, we were going to put an Eagle Forge crank in this. And I had already bought it, had it for the 468 build. Well, we kind of made a package deal between the 2 of us. Both of us come out good on it. Both of us were happy. So this is a 509 cubic inch Chevy big block. Now that you know what the block is, you can probably guess it's a 502 bow tie block. It is a 4-bolt main. It has Siamese cylinders. The heads, well, let's start at the bottom. We got the block. The crank is a Callie's Magnum. The rods are Callie's Compstar Forge rods, 7/16 rod bolts. Badass rods. You can't even see the line on them when they're bolted together. Chromoly wristbands, double spiral locks, which come with the pistons. The pistons are SRPs. They're forged. I can't remember exact CCs on the domes, but I know I fucked up when I ordered them. And they were supposed to be a 23 cc dome, which would have made this about a 9/8 to 1 motor for the turbos. 9/6 to 1, 9/8 to 1. But it's a little higher than that. Rings are total seal, gapless TNT series. They're gap for boost. It's a balanced rotating assembly. The engine has the best bearings King makes throughout the whole engine. Cam bearings, main bearing, rod bearings. Oil pan is a Meladon. Billet pump. High volume, high pressure. Let's see, cam's a Howard's. It is a hydraulic roller, so frown if you want, but I don't like messing with adjusting valves. Like I said, my goal was only 1,000 horsepower, and you can do that very easily on a hydraulic roller cam. It's a billet roller. When I called and told them what I was doing, they made some suggestions. I went with it. It cost me some extra money, but the cam is, I believe, 308, 316 on the duration, on a 114 plus 4 load separation, 110 intake center line, And it's 710, if I remember, it's 710, 710. Because we were dividing between 640, then we were talking 680 left, and I went with 710. I believe it's 710. It's either 710 or 701. I think it's 710 because 701 just don't sound right. It's got the Howard's hydraulic race lifters, the high rev, short travel race lifters, 3/8 push rods, one piece, hardened. I think they're like 120 wall. They're thick walled bastards. I know the push rods, it was $170 for the intake and $170 for the exhaust, because the engine machine shop got them. Howard's billet double roller timing set, Chloe's timing cover. It's got a Melodonic quart pan on it, old iridized pan. I got one that I knew would fit without cutting the cross member all up, with the sump all at the back. See, and then we come up. It's got Felpro multi-layer head gaskets. The heads are Flowtech. They're 315cc runners. 230 188 valves. Got Viton seals. Dark guide plates. You got all the good shit. Pack springs. Pack springs. And all the heads he's had in there. He said that's the first time he's had a head that would hold vacuum out of the box and didn't leak past the guides. They have a little bit thicker deck than a regular other guys' heads, from what I've been told. I did a lot of research. I talked to people that have used them, talked to them. So we're going to give them a try. And it's $749.99 out of the box. You can't beat that for an aluminum head for a big block Chevrolet. And they're a damn nice looking head. All the machine works good. Like I said, the machine shop took them all apart. Checked spring pressures. Checked with the cam manufacturer. He's very thorough. He just don't take it out of the box and bolt it on. It's got Howard's Pro Series stud girdles for what they are. The rockers. I went back. I thought we got the Summit, the best Summit rocker they made, but they're actually Howard's as well. No, they are Summit because they're blue. They're the best roller rocker Summit sells. And I've used them in the past and had good luck with them, so that's why I went with them. Of course, they have stud girdles. Intake is a YN Track Warrior that was port matched to the heads. Them heads got big ass ports in them, you know. And a 315cc head's like what you run on a 540. That's what Blueprint runs on their 540. I'm running on the 509. Engine's never been dynoed or anything done to it, but I would say it's probably making somewhere around 750 NA. It's a handful, this little truck. It makes a shitload of torque. You definitely know it's not a damn small block under the hood. I like a cam to sound good. A little disappointed this one don't have more rumpity rump to it, but it sounds alright, I guess. We're about making power, we're not about making noise at this point. Msd Pro Billet Distributor, 6 BTM box, Blaster 3 coil, Moroso Super 40 wires. It's got NGK Platinum plugs in it. Intake studded, head studded, mains are studded. Exhaust on it. The headers are for actually for Chevelle or Nova. They're made by CX Racing. Now CX Racing did their homework and made them tilt out a little more where you could run a tall valve cover. Because quite honestly, if you're going to twin turbocharge a damn big block, you're not going to be running a short valve cover on the valve train that you need to be running, is the way I feel. So what I ended up having to do is I went to a company called Harden Marine and I bought 2 3/4 inch thick billet exhaust manifold or what spacers to match my heads. I had them cut them to match these ports on these heads, and I've got, I think, 3 or 3 1/4 inch stainless studs, or what they call a set screw or grub screw, screwed into the head so they bottom out the threads, a copper gasket, the spacer, a copper gasket, and a header, and then I used 12-point ARP nuts, because then you use a 7/16 wrench on the ones you can't get a socket on, and you can get in there and get them tight, and there's no leaks. No leaks at all. I put a little high temp silicone, they don't leak at all. The little deal where we had trouble with interference with the alternator and everything, I just took some scrap, like 3-inch exhaust pipe, and some V-bands, and made like a, I think they're 30 to 35 degrees to kick the turbos out away from the motor. Worked perfect. Worked perfect. You've seen the other videos, they fit in there nice. Can't run an intercooler. There ain't no way to run it. I'm not running shit through the cab or anything else. I refuse to do it. The truck is all metal, all steel, except for the back window is Lexan, and the hood's fiberglass that goes on it. And I got a 6-inch hardwood hood that I'll put on it if I ever come to cutting it up to make it fit over the charge pipes once we're all done. Carburetor is a quick fuel black diamond 850 annular booster blow through carburetor. It's got some boost reference power valves that we put in it that I got from a company. We bought 2 from this guy in Australia, and I actually didn't care for the way the adjustment worked on them to adjust the pressure for the fuel pressure. So I went ahead and bought 2 from this other outfit that actually builds them and has got testing and background behind it. They were $130 for those 2, but they're a lot better power valve, a lot better design, a lot better looking, and to be honest, they look almost like a CSU power valve. What else have we got up there? Random bunch of fucking gauges for fuel pressure and everything else. It does have a NS Express mainline 1000 nitrous kit on it with 100 shot jets in it. Probably never use it, but I got it there. If I decide to run it or whatever, it might be enough to blow it up. It might take it just fine. But we're going to start out with 6 pounds of boost. And speaking of boost, the turbos are 2 VS Racing 78-75 1.25 AR Gen 2 or next gen turbos. 2 44mm wastegates on the CX Racing turbo to header adapters and 90-degree adapters, with the setup for the wastegate where when it turns, the wastegate is in line with the exhaust flow, not coming out the top or the back, but right in the middle of right in the bend where it is in line with the exhaust flow. I thought those were a better option. This radiator's just a Champion 4-core S10 swap radiator. Then I've got a 27 by 7 by 2 inch silicone intake systems air to water intercooler radiator that's running off the heater. Core fittings comes from underneath the thermostat through it and back into the top hose to go through the main radiator. It's got a Msd remote water pump, all -16 line fittings. Feeding the block and the pump and the radiator to the pump, and -16 flows just fine. We drove this thing during the summer, 95-degree heat, and beat on this and bitch around the block 4 or 5 times, and it never got over 180 degrees with 180 static. And when you put your thermostat in, because big blocks are known to hold air cavities around the exhaust ports and the heads, drill an 1/8 inch hole in your thermostat and it'll burp the air right out of it. Stock throttle cable, manual brakes, manual steering box, Jeep steering shaft, Under the hood, Speedway $99 steering column with detachable wheel. I lowered it at the firewall all the way to the pinch weld. Gives you plenty of room to get the plugs, the headers, and everything. The only thing I cut up on this truck is I notched the engine cross member back, I think, 3 inches to clear the oil pan. It's a little snug, but I've got about a ½ inch on either side of the pan, about a ½ inch in front of it. Gives me enough to get the drain plug in and out, and that's all that matters. Now here's something that a lot of people don't realize. I'm using the Transdat 9906 old school 350 swap mounts on the engine and a polyurethane 2.8 mount made out of 1/4 inch plate on the frame side. And I think that about covers everything on the engine. 4-inch stainless exhaust with 2 total flow mufflers in there. Just say it's got mufflers on it so I don't get bitched at. If I get stopped or anybody saying it's got a goddamn muffler on it. Turbo's a muffler plus a muffler and ain't getting no more muffler. Because I got one guy last summer that was an absolute prick and it just about come to a fist fight between me and his old ass. Lives 2 streets over and he stays his old ass over there and leave me alone. Nobody likes him anyway. So the transmission is a FTI Turbo 400 level 4.5 FTI converter. It has a manual valve body, trans brake, deep pan, all that good shit. You can go look it up at Summit if you want the specs on a 4.5 FTI transmission. I've had buddies that run them in mud trucks. They spoke highly of that, and when I looked for transmissions, it was about the same price to go to Rossler for one of their Terminator 4s or whatever it was, but they had a goddamn waiting period. It was ungodly, and I said, forget it. Chromoly drive shafts would be fast shafts, but they, however you say it, Sonax or Sonax yokes on both ends. It's got a big 30-row tranny cooler. It's got a 19-row oil cooler for the turbos to cool the oil out of the block motor before it goes into the turbos. All the AN fittings are green except for some black ones, but they're all from color fittings. Guy's got a store on eBay, sells on Amazon, some other places, but you can look up colorfittings.com. Got a lot of cool shit. Rear end is just a 98 Explorer 8.8. It's been whacked down for an S10. The typical 3-inch chop, which actually ain't 3 inches. You take your axles with you. He'll measure the difference, and that's what he takes out of it. Where I go to Lane Machine in Kansas City, Missouri. Plus, they'll straighten the axle tubes if they need it. It's got Yukon center section in it. It's got Yukon Chromoly 35 spline axles, motive gear, ring and pinion. It's a posi. It's not got a spool in it. I didn't want to deal with a spool because I'm going to drive it on the street. It's got a 355 gear in it, where the old setup was a 410 and the old 88 that I took out, which I'm keeping to put under this Blazer or something else. Or I won't sell it because my son and I did that rear end ourselves. In street trim, it's got some of them black 5-spoke aluminum wheels on it. It's got Hoosier front runners on the front, 26s. It's got 555 Nitto drag radial on the back, 275 6015 when I drive it on the street. If I ever go to race it, I do have a set of B-blocks. They're billet specialties. Just an inexpensive B-block. Don't know if it needs them, don't know if it don't. My son's actually the one that bought them, so we got some Mickey Thompson slicks for it. It's got an 8-point cage. It's got 8 points out of the 12 points put in it. The rest of the cage has got to get put in yet. I just ain't done it. I was excited. I wanted to drive it last summer, so we didn't finish it. It's got cheap aluminum fuel cell in it. Bought off Amazon. It's been in it for 4 years. It don't leak, so we kept it. It's got a 2.5 gallon ice box. run through a little 30-row plate and fin cooler with a 9-inch fan on it, through the little cryo coolers, which I'll show you one of them if I can get it here without knocking a bunch of crap over. I've showed you guys these before. It's a little, what they call cryo cooler, 3-inch in and out, dash four in and out, and it's got a coil that runs all around this, and you can pump CO2, you whatever you want through them to cool your charge air. I'm just going to use like water weather and water. Probably on the street I won't run nothing in them, but if I ever race I can put ice water in it, whatever, you know, dry ice and water, whatever. It don't matter. Just set that up there. It's just my little hot rod. Now, I don't know if you can see, let me turn this a little bit where you can get all the truck in it. Well, other than this shit's in the way. Let me move it. And the toolbox is in the way. The truck sets up in the front end just a hair. It still has stock 2.2 springs in the front of it with that big block and all turbos and all shit on it. And a 26-inch tall tire, and you can see the gap between the tire and the fender. It didn't squish it down like everybody's, oh, big block's gonna bottom the springs out. No, it don't. It rides just like it did if it had a 4-banger in it. The back's been dropped 4 inches. It's got some Western chassis 4-inch drop springs in it. I had 4-inch drop blocks, and I took them out because the power we're making now, I didn't want some damn aluminum block back there and some long-ass U-bolts. So it's got 4-inch Western chassis drop springs. It's got brand new shackles, brand new frame bushings this time. Of course, the cow tracks with the solid bushings in the front. Good thing I kept the smaller ones because I needed them for the springs. All new bolts and everything in the ass end this time. I tell you, I didn't go on none of the old dry rotted shit I left in it last time. My little Marvin Martian thing, his finger in it says it's too loud, too bad. The holes in the fender are 5-inch, the pipe's about 4-inch. That way it gives it some room for air to go around it. And I turned them upwards this time, kind of blow the exhaust up. When it would blow straight out, if you were cruising at a slow speed, it kind of trailed down the side of the truck. And I'm waiting this summer. I'm waiting to see if the cop stops me because the exhaust doesn't go past the passenger compartment. But I doubt it. Probably won't even. Most of them geek out on it. They did last summer when I got it out. Never even said shit about being loud. I got a sheriff's officer who lives at the top of the hill. He thinks it's cool as hell. Thinks it's way overkill, but he thinks it's cool as hell. The truck does have a name, and my wife and kids are the one that started it. It's not an ego thing. It's not because it's a big block twin turbo or anything else. And it got its name because it's kind of been what it's named to me. The truck's name is Kryptonite, and because it's my kryptonite. Because it has been a journey doing this. The research, beating my head against the wall, trying to find stuff that would work. Because I used all off-the-shelf parts, and when we first did this four-wheel drive, I proved that you could put a big block on one of these trucks and use a mechanical fan, and I had a regular copper brass 4-core radiator for a Chevy 3/4 ton truck in it, and the shroud, and the fan, and a mechanical water pump, and made it all work. I used the Camaro Headers. I believe they were the H8012s or 8013s, whichever one's the bigger tube. One's I think 1.5 inch, one's 1.7 inch. Patriot, Clipster, or short, mid-length, whatever you want to call them. Headers on it, but you do have to do a little trimming behind the driver's motor mount where that front tube comes back and then it drops down. You have to trim out the engine cross member a little bit at the top where it goes over like a 90 degree. you have to cut that out and make it a slope. And just cut it out, put a piece of plate in, weld it back in, and you're done. And cut the ear off the back of the motor mount on the frame side, and you're done. When we did it this last time, I actually went and found out there was a place close to me that sold on eBay stainless headers, and we went over and dug through shit until I found two I thought would work, and I brought them home. I had to buy 2 pair. The passenger header was for a Gen 1 Camaro, and when you get those, you need to make sure that the tubes are grouped tight together. You don't want them spread out, because then it's a bitch to get to the control arm in the back to grease it. So you want them grouped together tight. The driver's side was just a generic block hugger, which to me looks real similar to a Tri-5 shorty block hugger, where it dumps down right in against the block, right in front of the oil filter. This truck's been is like one of the kids now, because every one of my kids have touched this. Both boys, my daughter, my grandson has, my wife has. And way back in the beginning when it was 4-wheel drive, my best friend in the world